Ever get that feeling like you're trapped in a bad dream? You know, heart pounding, can't quite catch your breath, feeling totally helpless.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel thinking about Karen Reed's story.
I can see why.
Just imagine being accused of something you didn't do, evidence everywhere pointing right at you, and then the thought that someone might be setting you up. I mean, it's terrifying.
It really is. It shakes you to the core,
Yeah,
justice,
yeah.
security, all those things we take for granted.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into today, the Karen Reed trial.
A real head scratcher, this one.
Right. We're using this episode of the Sir Leslie podcast as our guide, walking through all the twists and turns up to week 6 of the trial.
Buckle up, folks.
So picture this. A blizzard raging in Canton, Massachusetts, January 29, 2022. John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, found dead in the snow outside a house party. His girlfriend, Karen Reed, she says she dropped him off earlier that night, but then things get complicated.
Yeah, the investigation takes a sharp turn, doesn't it?
It does. They find pieces of a taillight near John's body, shattered red and clear plastic. And that's where Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara comes in. He's the officer who found the pieces.
So he testifies they match Karen's car.
Bingo. Right. Open and shut.
Not so fast. The defense, they come back swinging. They say the crime scene wasn't secured.
So now we're talking tampering.
Exactly. Could someone have planted those taillight pieces?
If you want to frame someone, that's a pretty good way to do it. Right at the scene, make it look like an accident.
Chilling thought, right? And it gets even more complicated with the forensics.
Oh, yeah. The science gets messy.
So Maureen Hartnett, she examines Karen's car, finds scratches on the bumper, what looks like tiny pieces of glass, even a human hair.
So more connections to the scene, but hold on.
What is it?
They towed Karen's car 60 miles in a blizzard before they examined it.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. So could those tiny pieces really stay on the car after all that?
Good question. And then it gets weirder. The surveillance footage from the police station where they kept Karen's car, it's missing.
Gone. Oof. Vanished.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's like key parts of the puzzle are just disappearing.
Makes you wonder what was on those tapes, right? Who had access to them? Why would they go missing?
It's suspicious to say the least.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the analysis of John's clothing.
More forensics fun.
Right. So Maureen, she finds tears and holes on his sweatshirt.
So that backs up the hit and run theory.
Not so fast. She couldn't say for sure that those tears were from being hit by a car.
So it's not a slam dunk.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And then we meet Ashley. She's a trace evidence analyst.
One of those folks who puts broken things back together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's a puzzler. And she actually matched the taillight pieces to Karen's car.
Case closed then.
Nope. There's a catch. Those pieces, they weren't given to Ashley until 6 weeks after John died.
6 weeks. That's a long time.
It is. So now the chain of custody is in question. Who had those pieces? Were they tampered with?
Yeah, suddenly those 6 weeks feel very important.
And this is where Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, comes into play.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah, the defense is hinting that he might have messed with the evidence.
Proctor's going to be a key figure in all of this, isn't he?
Absolutely. We'll
Yeah.
get to him later. But let's talk about the witnesses, because things get even more interesting.
Oh, yeah, the human element.
So Sergeant Yuri Bukunik, Proctor's supervisor, takes the stand.
To tell.
Yeah, but here's the thing. His demeanor was strange.
How so?
Smirking. Making odd faces. Like he was in on a joke or something.
Nervous. Arrogant. Hard to say.
Yeah, it was unsettling. And the questions he was asked just added to the mystery.
Like what?
Well, they asked him about interviews with key witnesses. Jen and Matt McCabe, the couple who hosted the party. Brian Albert, another guest. And then there's security footage from a bar showing Karen having drinks.
Oh.
But it's not clear what she was drinking. Was it straight vodka, like some people say? Or something else? We just don't know.
That could be a big deal, right? Her state of mind that night, her memory, it all hinges on what she actually drank.
And then there's this audio clip, Karen talking to Yuri. And she says, we're all in on the same joke, right?
What?
And she starts talking about John being beaten up by Brian Albert. But Yuri cuts her off.
Hey.
Tells her to stop talking.
So is she being sarcastic? Is there a secret here? What's the joke?
It's creepy, right? And then the plot thickens. Doorbell camera footage from John's house. It's missing, too.
No kidding. Which parts?
The part showing Karen arriving. And the part where she shows Jen the cracked taillight the next morning.
So all the parts that could help her case? Convenient?
And guess who had access to that footage? Michael Proctor.
So now we're back to Proctor tampering with evidence. That's a serious accusation.
It is. And if it's true, it makes you question the whole investigation.
Absolutely.
But it gets even stranger.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah, why are they asking Yuri about John's injuries? He's a police officer, not a doctor.
That's a good point. Maybe they're trying to connect Karen's actions directly to how badly John was hurt, even if they don't have the medical evidence to back it up.
And why didn't they take anything from John's house as evidence? It was a potential crime scene.
Right. That's standard procedure.
And then John's clothes. Why did they take 6 days to dry at the police station? And who bagged them? There are so many loose ends.
It's like they weren't even trying to do a thorough investigation.
Right. So now the big question is, will they call Michael Proctor to testify? And if they do, will he talk?
If he pleads the fifth, that's not going to look good.
Not at all. It'll look like he's hiding something.
So we've got a jury trying to make sense of all this conflicting information.
Yeah, they have a tough job ahead of them.
They do. Karen's life is in their hands.
And John's family. They deserve to know what really happened to him.
This case is about more than just legal technicalities. It's about real people and the devastating impact of that night.
It makes you realize how much our choices matter, how one moment can change everything.
We might never know the whole truth of what happened that night.
But we can keep asking questions, keep searching for answers.
And that's what's important.
Right?
We can't let this go. We have to keep digging, keep pushing for the truth.
Exactly.
It's what we do.
It is.
It's wild, right? Thinking someone might have actually framed Karen, like what would their motive even be?
It's like a puzzle with some pieces missing, and the ones you have don't quite fit. And John, being a Boston police officer, that adds a whole other layer.
For sure. Makes you wonder if there's something more going on. Maybe a cover-up inside the department itself.
Right. Like, are they trying to protect one of their own? Someone who is involved in something shady?
Could be. You know that whole blue wall of silence thing? Cops protecting each other even when they've done wrong? We hear about it all the time.
Exactly. It makes you think about all the weird stuff in this case. The evidence not being handled right. The missing footage.
Speaking of missing footage, remember we're talking about two separate incidents. First, the surveillance video from the police station, poof, gone. Then the doorbell footage from John's house. The parts showing Karen arriving and showing Jen the broken taillight, all conveniently gone.
Way too convenient. And if someone in the police department was involved in framing Karen, they'd know exactly how to make that stuff disappear.
Oh, absolutely. They'd know the procedures, the security protocols where the cameras don't see. It'd be easy for them to erase evidence without anyone noticing.
It's scary to think that someone could manipulate the system like that, especially the police, the people we're supposed to trust to uphold the law.
It really highlights the importance of accountability and transparency, checks and balances, making sure no one can abuse their power.
This whole thing has me feeling super uneasy.
Yeah.
Like, how often does something like this happen? How often is the truth hidden to protect people in power?
It's a good question, and it's why we need to be critical thinkers, question authority, demand answers from those in charge. We can't just take things at face value.
Absolutely. This case is a perfect example of why we need to be skeptical, why we can't just accept the official story.
We need to be advocates for justice transparency, a system that protects innocent people, no matter who they are or who they know.
Cases like Karen's can't just get swept under the rug. We can't let the truth be twisted to fit someone else's agenda.
Having these conversations, raising awareness, making sure these stories are heard, that's how we fight for justice.
So for our listeners who are hooked on this case, what should they be paying attention to as the trial goes on? What could give us clues about what really happened that night?
We'll keep an eye on Michael Proctor. Will he testify? If he does, what will he say? Will his story match up with the evidence, or will it contradict everything we've heard so far?
If he does testify,
Yeah.
we need to be paying attention to everything. His body language, his tone of voice, any little slip up in his story. Sometimes what people don't say is just as important as what they do say.
Right. And we should be on the lookout for any new evidence, anything that could either support Karen's innocence or make her look even more guilty. We got to stay open-minded, consider all the possibilities.
What about the other witnesses? Could any of them have a reason to lie? Maybe protect themselves or someone else?
Relationships can be messy. Loyalties can change. People aren't always who they seem. We need to look at the connections between Karen, John, everyone at that party. Who knew what and when? Did anyone want John dead? Is someone hiding something to save their own skin?
It's like a tangled web of relationships and motives. Hard to know what's real and what's not. It's not just a puzzle. It's people's lives, their secrets, their fears.
And each piece we look at brings us closer to the truth. But it takes patience, attention to detail, a willingness to question what we think we know.
This case is a wild ride, and we're going to keep breaking it down for you. analyzing the evidence, looking at the testimonies, trying to make sense of this whole crazy story. That's what we do here at the Deep Dive. We go beyond the headlines. We dig deep. We uncover the hidden truths.
And in this case, the truth is hiding really well, but we're going to find it piece by piece.
It's really intense, right? Thinking about that jury,
Yeah.
sitting there, weighing all the evidence, trying to decide who to believe. It's a huge responsibility.
No kidding. A woman's life is on the line, her freedom. It all comes down to their decision.
And let's not forget about John O'Keefe. His family deserves answers. They need to know what really happened to him. It's not just about Karen. It's about getting justice for John, too.
Absolutely. His story can't be forgotten amidst all the legal back and forth. This is about real people, real lives that have been shattered.
It's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences. What we do in a single moment can impact so many people, and those ripples can last a lifetime.
As we wait for the trial to wrap up, I think it's important to reflect on everything we've learned. This case has shown us the cracks in our justice system, how easily perception can be twisted, how fragile the truth really is.
It's challenged us to question what we believe, to think for ourselves, to demand accountability from those in power.
And it's highlighted the importance of empathy, remembering it that every story has multiple sides, and even in the darkest times, there's always hope for justice.
We may never know exactly what happened that night, but the search for answers, the pursuit of justice, that's what matters.
That's what keeps us going, right? The need to uncover the truth, to make sure the right thing is done.
So to everyone listening out there, stay curious, stay engaged. Don't just accept the stories you're told.
In a world where the truth is so easily manipulated, it's more important than ever to think critically, to question everything.
Keep an open mind, but don't be afraid to challenge the system. Demand proof, and fight for what you know is right.
Sometimes getting to the truth means being a little rebellious, shaking things up, having the courage to stand up for what you believe in.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Karen Read trial. We'll keep following this story and bring you more updates as things develop. Until then, stay informed and stay engaged.
And never stop searching for the truth.
That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.